Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong support of this bill. It's a privilege for me to serve on the Public Health Committee, and I've been very impressed with the bipartisan approach that the committee and the chairs have taken, not only on this bill, but on others as well. Clearly, we're facing a major crisis here in Connecticut. The number of heroin overdose deaths has skyrocketed. Statistics that I've seen were that in 2012 there were 174. In 2015 it was 415. Fentanyl went from 14 in 2012 to 186 in 2015. So clearly the statistics are alarming and really I think are prompting us to take strong action. But underneath statistics are always human stories, real lives, and it was very sobering for me to attend the press conference, and I know that my good colleague, Representative Scallon, helped arrange to hear the personal stories of young adults who died and the impact on their families. I can say that on a completely unrelated matter, just in this past week, I was visiting in Norwalk the owners of a restaurant chain in our town, and we were talking about business, and I asked how their business was doing, and unprompted and unscripted and unrelated to what we're doing here, the owner said, we have a real problem with our staff. And I said, well, what do you mean? Well, she said, a lot of them are addicted to heroin. And as a matter of fact, we've had to let go a number of people, and it's almost like we have a revolving door, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And so it was very sobering to hear that in a very direct way, right in my own hometown and places that we visit and frequent very regularly. I'm a strong supporter of the 7-day prescription limit, and I do believe that there's science behind that number. I'm supportive of looking at a 3-day in the future, if that makes sense. I do believe that there's reasonable exceptions here for people who are in chronic pain. I'm very strong supporter of the Narcan availability. I do have, through you, Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask the good chair a question, and this was something that came out in our committee, but I think it's important that it's mentioned on the floor, and it's a background question. So how, in terms of those who have died, what's the journey been like where someone, let's say, goes in and let's say they're 19 or 20 years old and they have their wisdom teeth pulled out and they can prescribe an opiate, and maybe it was like a 30-day prescription. And for these extreme cases, what was the journey like to go from that to dying from heroin? Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Ritter.
Through you, and I will try not to lend my sort of opinions to sort of speaking as to fact as to an individual's journey. I want to be careful about that. But I think, and I mentioned this, Representative Scallon will have statistics. The sheer number of pills that are in the medicine cabinets that are left over, and the volume of people who the first prescription drug they try is from a medicine cabinet is alarming. And so although I can't speak to each individual path, I can certainly see a connection and a nexus between the two. And although I don't know that in a year we'll see a huge change without a huge increase in funding and maybe beds for addiction, in a few years as we reduce the supply in the medicine cabinets, that's when you'll begin to see this bill really make an impact. And I think Representative Scallon will give some statistics which really paint that connection through you.
Representative Wilms.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the good chair for that answer. So in conclusion, I'd just like to say I'm a strong supporter of this bill. I intend to sign on as a co-sponsor, and I urge my colleagues to support it as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative. Representative